Hey, it's August 18th, and I'm going to take a look at the fruit trees, mostly the plum trees. Um, Having a really good year, and this is the Shiro Plum tree. It's probably 8 years old or so. Asian plum. It's absolutely loaded with plums. They've been attacked by birds and raccoons and squirrels, but it's still loaded. I've had to prop up the branches here with sticks to hold them up. It's always had this kind of spread form to it, but the weight of the fruit, it really is arching over and bending all the main branches. Tons and tons of fruits. Had some in the past, never more than a couple dozen, but this year is absolutely loaded with Shiro plums, and they're getting to be a good color. When you get them in the store, they're usually kind of a pale yellow and not that tasty really, but if you let them ripen up to almost an orangey color, they get really juicy and they have a lot more taste. Anyways, we don't know what we're going to do with all these. Maybe some plum wine, some plum desserts. Yeah, we'll figure out something. And the other trees I have here is a Burbank. This is the second Burbank. The first one was planted at the same time as the Shiro. It died. This is the second one. It's a little weakly as well too. You can see some southwest disease here from splitting in March from the frost thaw cycle. So it's a lot smaller of a tree. It's younger. It's a little bit stunted in its growth maybe, but it has put out a number of plums as well, and yeah, they're looking good. These ones are usually ready before or at the same time as the Shiro. Good size, varying colors. We got orange and yellow ones and half purple ones to dark purple ones. A little bit bigger than the Shiro as well. There's probably 30-40 fruits on there. The Toka plum, I haven't had fruits in a number of years off this one. It's a big tree, it has tons of blossoms every year, but usually the fruits all dry up and fall off. This year, although it had thousands of blossoms, it's still got hundreds of fruits, so excited to try some of these. Plum cuculio really attacks this tree, and most of the plums end up getting attacked and dropped from plum cuculio beetles chewing on them. Anyways, finally going to get some of those, and its ripening date is a little bit later. It's a small little tree, the Mount Royal plum. It's a European plum. Sorry, and the Toka plum we just showed was a North American hybrid, so it's really hardy. This is the Mount Royal plums, European. It's very cold hardy European plum, loaded with fruits. They've just turned purple this week, so I'll start sampling them now to see if they're ready. They look ready, but they might benefit from another week or so on the tree. Absolutely loaded with fruits as well too. I do have a black ice plum further in the backyard here, which set a couple fruits and they dropped off during the early summer. This is a spring satin plum, so that's the black ice there. It's got an upward vase form to it, and that tree back there is the spring satin, so it's a hybrid of a plum and an apricot. No fruits off that this year. Well, there was some, but they got attacked heavily. I have one other plum tree up the side of the house here. It's called Green Gage, and it's a green plum, European, French origins, actually a very old variety. They're harder to see because they're green, and they're like a lime green color when they're ripe. There's a bunch up there. Yeah, there's actually quite a lot in here. They just don't show out as much as the other plums because that color camouflages. It's not as many as the other plums, but there's quite a few in there. So you have to be a little bit more diligent about checking these. You can see some sap coming out of some of the bottom of those. Sorry, it's not focusing. But that's plum cuculio damage as well too. So yeah, I was just saying you have to be a little bit more diligent in checking these to make sure you catch when they're ripe, because they don't really color change much. They'll go to a bit of a lime green. That's it for the plum trees. I'll just show you a couple of things too. Pears here, the Bartlett pears. It's quite an old tree and it's just very slow growing. There's a number of Bartlett pears in there. Actually not that many, maybe less than 10. The Herald Delight pear. It's actually been dropping a couple. There's 2 or 3 on the ground here somewhere. And they shouldn't be ready till September really, so another 2 to 3 weeks. They've certainly got their nice color, some reds in there. The ones I have cut open that have fallen on the ground, the seeds are very white and underdeveloped, so I'm not sure if it was water stress that's dropping some plums right now. They're still fairly small, like that's not a huge pear, but bigger than we've had in the past, I guess. I'm guessing, yeah, just some kind of stress has made the tree drop some fruits. I'll show a couple apples now, though they really won't be in their prime until October, a lot of these varieties. This is wealthy, and it is an earlier apple, so it should be ready in September here. It always gets this cedar apple rust. I don't think it affects the tree too much. It is, again, a fairly short tree, but all the trees in this row are. It gets fairly dry here, and maybe some shade as well too. This is the Honeycrisp apple. It's only one apple. It's coming along. It's this mid-September apple, so it's still got a month to go. I did put this orchard sock on it to protect the one apple, make sure bugs don't get it. The Chijuro Asian pear. It survives the winter okay here. It hasn't put on a lot of growth this year. The pears are small. They shouldn't be ready for another month either, but in the past they've stayed this kind of small size as well. So it's a short little tree. I guess it doesn't love the climates here, but it survives and does fruit. These are the clove currants. So I don't think they're a true currant, but it's a nice bush. I think it's native to the prairies maybe. The fruit's okay. Certainly edible, but has a really nice yellow flower in the spring as well too. The Valiant grapes. I'm not sure if you can see from this side, but it's loaded with grapes. They've just turned purple this week, so they're edible now, and they'll continue to get better in the next week or two. That was hot, dry summer, so the grapes really thrived on that. There's a hummingbird there. Yeah, this is a 5-in-1 apple tree. Some macoons, lots of macoons up in here. All the varieties are having a good year. Strawberry pippin here, which is probably the earliest variety. It's been edible for a couple of weeks actually, some of them. They're a very large apple. They color up early. Not, I guess, like all summer apples, they're not the best taste. It's only August 18th here, and it's pretty early for us to have any apples. This one's ambrosia. Absolutely loaded with fruits. That's a October apple, a later apple. And beside it's the Royal Gala. They're starting to get their pink colors already, but still won't be ripe until October as well. So lots of Royal Galas in there. Ashmead's Kernel. It's not a pretty apple, but supposedly quite tasty. Unique flavors. And there's a number of those up in there. Ashmead's Kernel. And very few pitmasses and pineapples in here somewhere too. I'm not even sure I can find them. The macoons or any Ashmead kernels kind of take over, but there was one or two up in there before, so I'm excited to try pitmasses and pineapple. And I did, this one's macoon, but I've taken a bunch of these orchard socks on this one as well. Actually, all the varieties have a couple protected, so I can try some. Golden Delicious, this is my mature tree. I think it's 10 or 12 years old. Absolutely loaded. Like, you're not going to be able to see them all in here this close up, but the tree is loaded with fruits. We're going to have to figure out what to do with all these. There's so many fruits. And yeah, maybe we'll try some cider or something like that. One or two more varieties to show. Behind the Golden Delicious here, I have Akane. It's still a fairly small size tree. It's a mid-September, early September apple. They're reddening up right now. They look beautiful actually. Lots of them in there, and they're starting to get a pretty good size. I guess it's still kind of small, but they'll get a little bit bigger yet. It's a nice little apple. And then I've got 3 dwarf apples inside the garden. So Liberty is always my best performer. This tiny little tree, it's still fairly young, but it's had huge fruit crops like this every single year. It's mid to late October variety. For me, absolutely loaded with fruits, as it is every year. You just can't stop this thing. First year I've had fruits on the Sweet 16. It's a younger tree. It's got quite a few fruits on though. They're starting to get a little bit of color to them. Decent size so far. I think they're September or maybe October as well too. They're still at least a month off. And then the last one is the Williams Pride apple. So I've never had one of these before. It's a young tree again, but it should be ready in a couple of weeks. It's early September. Certainly got its color already. A deep red, and they're supposed to be fairly disease resistant as well. No signs of disease, although I have had some insect attacks here. And that's a look at all the fruit trees that are doing well. One thing I didn't show is the apricot. I have a Harlane apricot in the front yard, and it did make some beautiful fruits, really tasty fruits. First time I've had apricots. Only about 10. It's still a small tree, but really good. I should have taken